Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of NintendoFuse's Industry Talk. I'm your host, Barry, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Mason Remaley from Anthropic Studios.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Mason and I actually got to meet at Play NYC a couple weekends back, where he was there showing off his game, Way of Rhea, which is awesome, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But first, tell us a little bit about your background. Like, what made you decide, hey, I'm gonna wake up today and I'm gonna make a video game?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a funny story around that. I've been doing games for a long time. I got into tech because I was a kid and I found some open source game engine online called Dim3, and I downloaded it and I had no idea how to program or anything, and I just started tweaking things. I wanted to make something a different color, so I searched the code for the word green and changed it to red or whatever. And so I got into games a long time ago, and I just kind of made a lot of little projects I never released, and a lot of big projects that I never finished. The story behind this project, though, was that I went to GDC 2 years ago, and I saw Bennett Foddy's talk about a class he teaches at NYU. For those of you who don't know, Bennett Foddy is the one who made QWOP and Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. I guess that's kind of unsurprising. His name's in the title. But he gave this great talk about how he has this class where he has the students make one game a week, just for the whole semester. And I thought, oh, that's super awesome. Like, you probably learn a lot, like actually completing a game every single week. And so I got some friends together and we decided we're going to make one game a week for maybe like a month. And I signed up for a small play. I was living in New York City at the time, and I signed up for a small playcrafting expo without a game. And the expo was in like 8 or 9 days, I guess a little over a week. And we didn't have a game yet. And then we spent the remaining time making a game. What we ended up with was the first prototype for Way of Rhea. And we liked it so much that instead of then going to make 3 more games, we just kept working on it.
That's
So
interesting.
it really was a wake up one day and decide to make a game. Like, it's literally what happened.
See, sometimes it's what they call like a happy accident, That's really interesting. I would think making a game a week would be very stressful. I mean, obviously you're not making a big AAA blockbuster, but still, there's a lot of work that goes into making a game. And the week is a very short amount of time when you have a deadline.
Yeah, in hindsight, trying to do that while also working a full-time job, I should have given it maybe a couple weeks, or I didn't really factor. It was about halfway through when I realized, wait, the students aren't also working full-time while they're taking this class. So yeah, if I was to do that again, now I am doing this full-time, but if I was to do that again while working full-time, I would give it a little more than a week. It is an exercise, though, in like realizing what's important. There's a lot of stuff that you look at and you're tempted to go work on, and you go, well, you know what, that is something we can solve later. We don't yet know how important that is because we don't have gameplay yet or whatever, right? So what it really forced us to do was to kind of just get gameplay on the screen as soon as possible so that we could do iterations on the gameplay before the event. If we didn't have gameplay by the event, then we wouldn't have a game. And if we didn't have gameplay like very much ahead of time, we wouldn't have time to iterate on it, and it wouldn't be very good gameplay by the time the event happened. So I think it was a really good thing, even though it was kind of stressful in that, like, if we hadn't done it, I could have easily spent months like screwing around with graphics and like, I mean, graphics are super important, but I probably would have just spent months tweaking all these things and making it super fast and making it look pretty, and then realize I didn't know what the gameplay was yet. It forced me to not do that.
Yeah, that's it's very similar to writing. You could literally spend the whole time building a world without just, hey, you know what? Let's just get right down to the gritty bits of it. Now, let's not worry about chapter 18. Let's focus on chapter 1. So that's really interesting. Now, what was the inspiration behind this game?
Yeah, so the reason we decided to go with this game, I had the idea for like a color-based puzzle game a long time ago, and I wrote it down somewhere and then kind of forgot about it. And the reason we decided to go with this one over any other idea is that we only had a week, so I wanted to do something where, at least for the first prototype, we could get away without having any physics. I love doing 3D, but I was like, we have a week. It's all custom engine too, so I was like, look, I'm not doing 3D for this 1 week project. And we just were like, okay, so I'm going through my notes and I find this color-based idea, and I go, you know what, that's something I can work with. The original idea for the color-based game was actually like a 3D third-person game, but I was like, you know what, we can make this a side-scroller. We can make a prototype in a week. The actual idea for the game was like heavily influenced by games like Braid and Portal. Obviously, those like visually, those games are very different, but I think at their core, they are in the same kind of subgenre of puzzle games. They're games where they kind of take a small set of mechanics. So like in Portal, going through portals, the buttons and the crates that can go on the buttons and so on. In Braid, rewinding time, and then the fact that it doesn't affect some things and all the different little nuances there. This kind of subgenre of puzzle games, at least in my mind, goes and just takes those mechanics and then explores them as deeply as possible and explores all the interesting consequences of those rules. And so this, for me, is my attempt to kind of contribute to that, to just say, okay, well, I have an interesting idea about how you could do teleportation and how you could do puzzles based on colors, and I want to see if there's a depth there that I can explore.
You're not going to have some kind of like dark twist at the end like Braid, are you?
Oh, I can't tell you now.
That's true. You can't. Now, this is not something you're doing alone. Like, did the group of people that you said you were building this prototype with, are they still part of the studio? Are they still working on Way of Rhea, or did you bring in new people to the fold?
All the people who originally started working on it are still working on it, and some new people as well. So when we started, it was me, the artist I'm working with, Carrie, and I had some music from a friend of mine, Colin, and a couple other people contributed as well. But soon after the event, we got writer on board, sound person on board, which has really helped.
I can imagine it's certainly an ordeal. I've seen people do like one-person games like Dust and Ecclesian Tale, and I just look at it in awe. And then I look at your game and I'm like, the same type of awe, even though it's just a few people, but it's so beautiful. And for those that you that haven't seen this, you need to check this game out. It's on our page, NintendoFuse.com, and in my Play NYC write-up. It's on your official site. Just look up Way of Rhea. You need to check this game out. There's also a demo available, right? Is this the same demo that was playing at Play NYC, or did you add new stuff, or?
There's not a demo available for download right now, but we do bring it to lots of events. So we have the demo that we brought to Play NYC, and I can't remember for sure. Did you get through the experimental levels in that?
I didn't get to play it. I was talking.
Oh, right.
My wife played it.
Yeah. So I think she got through the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a demo that we bring to events. We'll be at the next event that I know we're going to be at is MagWest, for those of you on the West Coast. And what it has is basically like first level of the game, full artwork and everything. I mean, I'm sure it'll change before you release it, but just, you get a sense of it. And then there's some extra puzzles where there's no artwork for them yet, but just to give you a sense of where the game's going, what other kind of content's going to be in there. But yeah, to try it out right now, you'd have to actually find me at an event.
Any chance we're going to get this demo downloadable so we can, give this a chance?
Not in the near. I mean, I'd be happy to send you a copy. Yep. I'm not going to be uploading a demo for the public in the near future. That's something I might think about kind of down the road.
Yeah, I think this is one of those games that looking at it, it's amazing, but I think you get a completely different feel when you play it. Like there are some games that you could just completely watch and get a whole feel. That's kind of where Twitch kind of went off the rails. But I think this is one of those that benefits more from actually play.
Yeah, that's probably true. It's one of the things that I've been struggling with in the game is finding a way to communicate visually to either onlookers, like if you're at an event and you're in line, or to people online just looking at screenshots, what the game's about. Which is, something I'll probably take into account earlier in the development cycle next time. But it's challenging because the game's all about changing colors, and what color you are affects what you can interact with in the world. And I mean, even just that mechanic is a thing that, it sounds very visual, right? The colors change. But the causation is very hard to see if you're just watching someone play. When you're experimenting with it yourself and you go around, you try to go through the gate, you see, oh, that doesn't work. I can't go through that. Let me change color here. Or you get to the teleporters. It's just looking at it. You see the character kind of zipping around and popping to different parts of the screen. You may not really understand why or like what the person's thinking who's playing it.
Yeah, I will admit when I was watching people take the teleporters, I didn't really grasp, hey, why they're going this way or what transports them. And then as I started to really pay more attention to it, I kind of got like, oh, I see what's going on. So it wasn't an immediate thing. It did take a little bit of a time, but I don't think that's a negative. I think that's, that adds a little depth to the game, personally, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting balancing act because I mean, part of what I really like about playing a new game is starting it up and then having no idea what the rules are and being forced to just experiment and figure things out. So I don't, I don't want it to be too obvious, right? If it's too obvious, you lose that. There's this like charm and mystery of starting a new game, or if it's a game like Braid or Portal where they keep introducing new twists, just starting a new level even, like there's that charm in just being like, I don't really know what my options even are yet. And so it's interesting trying to figure out how to communicate to onlookers like, hey, interesting stuff going on, and it actually is worth kind of engaging, but also not over communicate to the player because you don't want to just kind of give everything away. You want to let them experiment.
Now, how big do you think this game is going to be? I know you have the first level done, you have some experimental stuff. Are you planning for this to be like 100-level epic, or is this going to be, just a 10-level adventure? Like, where are you aiming for?
So it's tricky. It's hard to say because what my target actually is not a target of length, but a target of like I want to just go as deep as I can with the puzzles and then stop. I don't want to ever get to a point where you go to the next level and you're kind of like, oh, I see, you've kind of just reconfigured stuff from the last level because it's not really an action game. So you can't, if you've already solved a similar puzzle before, solving it again isn't particularly interesting.
Yeah.
There'll be secrets and stuff to go back to if you want to kind of play the game again, but like, you can't have two similar levels one after the other. And so really what I want to do is just see how much depth I can get out of these mechanics, and then that's it. My suspicion is that it won't be a super long game, but it remains to be seen because I'm still making new content.
Now, one of the things you were talking about at Play NYC was the story and the basis of it. And can you get into that a little bit? Because I found that pretty fascinating.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and that's actually also kind of a tension there, right? The fact that I don't know how long the game is, but there is a story that's supposed to be, happening in the game is actually a hard problem to resolve. But yeah, so without giving away too much, and this is also still in flux, so it could change. But the story is about, well, you're this eternal sprite character that's kind of been around forever. Been on Earth since before the humans, and you kind of tend to things and make sure that the world's kind of in balance. And as of recent, things have started to get out of balance. And so there are these different shrines that you have all around the world that kind of help keep things in check. And you have to kind of go check on them and maybe not solve the problem, but just kind of record what the current state is. Like, okay, things aren't going well. And exactly what way aren't they going well? And these shrines are hidden behind puzzles that you've built so that no one else can go and meddle with them. So the game's kind of about you traveling through the world and just going to each of these kind of sacred locations and exploring them.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea, and definitely can bring up the mystery, what's going on with the world, what's wrong with it, and definitely play with the life, the life we know now in the spirit world kind of deal. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Now, one interesting thing you mentioned to me before was that you said you were in New York at the time. Now you're not, and your studio is comprised of people from across the United States. How is it working on a game, with people from literally across country?
It's been pretty good so far. There are obviously challenges. There are days when the task at hand, it would be easier to work on it if I could sit down. Carrie is the artist. If I could sit down with Carrie and like just talk to face as we do stuff. But we do FaceTime calls. We share notes online, and it's at the end of the day, because it's a pretty small team. It's not like when you have a bigger company, you often have multiple people kind of on the same task, and that you have to actually coordinate. Like, okay, I'm working on this piece of this task now, and you're working on this piece of this task. But because we only have about 5 people, depending on how not everyone's working on it every day, but 5 people total. It's like everyone is doing like 5 of their own tasks. And so there are places where they need to kind of make sure everything links up. But like if Carrie goes off and is painting new character artwork or something, like she doesn't need to check in with me all the time. She can go do that, and I can go and build a bunch of new puzzles. And then we do need to communicate to make sure like, oh yeah, like do these things mesh well and do they link up? But that's like there are good sync points for that.
It's interesting with the way technology has come across that's capable. I mean, here at NintendoFuse, we have people across the country too, so it's similar situation, but nowhere near as complex as actually designing a game and building it. So I definitely give kudos. How do you feel? You started this part time, now it's full time. How does it compare? Part time game development versus full time. Like, how are the changes in that?
Well, it feels a lot better being full time. Work and I do freelance work on the side and stuff to I have to make the games. I can't really kind of bet on the game making me enough money to make rent and everything. So I do some other stuff. But working full time while also working on the game full time meant that I literally didn't do anything else, which probably isn't the healthiest thing. It also means though that like when for me at least when I'm working somewhere else full time working on the game on the side, I find it really easy to get distracted by one small piece of the game and kind of spend a month just working on that piece and then kind of in retrospect be like, well, if I had really thought about this, I should have spent the first week of that month trying out these other different things and then deciding what to do with the rest of the month. It's just now I have more time to kind of sit down and decide like what percent of my time should be dedicated to what task. I mean, even just like getting out to expos and stuff, like I have more time to do that now, which is good.
Now, speaking of the expos, how has the reception been from either Play NYC or any other expos you've shown this at?
It was good. But Play NYC was I really enjoyed Play NYC. I enjoyed the new space, the new layout, and everything, and it seemed like people enjoyed the game. I was worried beforehand because immediately prior to Play NYC, we redid all of the artwork in the game. I guess there are a couple pieces like the character that are still the same, but like all of the level artwork, the game does now have physics, and I wrote the physics engine for it and built a bunch of new puzzles. And so I was a little worried about going to a major event with like all of this new content. And I'd play tested it at smaller places and stuff, but it was still just like, people going to be, it's like what, like 5,000 people showed up to play NYC, like a lot of people going to be playing the game. It would be too bad if I found out that every single person got stuck on the same thing 30 seconds into the game or something, right? But it went really well. It seemed like a lot of the problems that I was hoping to solve with the changes we made got better. There are some mechanics where like the teleporter, for example, people used to have a lot more trouble than I wanted them to have with it. It is one of those things you're supposed to kind of figure out on your own, but it was some people were kind of getting to the point where they solved the puzzle and still didn't really understand what they had done. And so I made some changes, not to how the teleporter works, but to how it kind of presents itself. And I think we kind of hit the sweet spot where people struggle with it, but then they get it, which is what I was hoping for. And other than that, I was surprised at how many people showed up to Play NYC and how many people we got to kind of go through the game.
That's great, but it was all positive. Like people really enjoyed the game.
Yeah, there were a couple like there's one place in the game where I discovered the night before Play NYC that you can get into like an unrecoverable state. I would say that's the only thing that went wrong is that a few people, managed to get themselves into the state. And I have all the cheat codes. I go and get them out and it's no problem. But you feel a little bad when someone does that because, you don't. I mean, some games are supposed to be that way. This isn't a game where I want you to be able to get to an unsolvable state. So that's probably the only thing that really went wrong.
It's also nice to have that many testers because they're going to try things that maybe you don't think to try. And it definitely helps with bugs as well.
Yeah.
Now,
it's also good just to have seen. I've never had a problem with this, but it's one of those things where you always have that fear that, well, what if someone leaves the game running for 8 hours straight? Is something bad going to happen? And so you do tests, right? Like I'll run the game and then I'll go to sleep and I'll get up the next day and see, oh, good, it's still running. But, I wasn't sitting there pushing buttons the whole time. And so it was actually pretty cool to see not only that everyone went through it and it was fine, but to see that, like, yeah, at the end of the day, the game never crashed. It didn't leak memory and, like, just built the whole system. It just everything was fine. So it's always a reassuring thing to see after one of those big expos.
That's awesome to hear. So you say you're doing another expo on the West Coast. What's that going to be like for you? You think are you going to go that solo, or is the team flying in for that?
What I'm trying to do is it's kind of expensive to have everyone travel coast to coast. But I have a bunch of friends around here, like fellow game developers, who are also going to be expoing there. So what I'm hoping to do, and we haven't sorted this out yet, but I'm hoping to kind of get all our tables next to each other. So similar to Play NYC, right? Because at Play NYC, my team was there as well, but also I was there with the folks from Gumbo, the game collective in New York, and we had the whole row, which was nice because if you need to step out, the person at the table next to you can kind of look over your stuff. At MagWest, I'm hoping to do kind of the same thing with just a bunch of people I know around here. It's a little challenging because MagWest is a 24-hour event, so we got to figure out what we're going to do about that.
Oh my God. That definitely sounds like a handful. I don't know how I'd do that.
Yeah, probably the answer is going to be that there are some hours of the night where the game's packed up and it's not there, which I think is what most people do. It'd be nice to have it there available all the time, but right now we're doing expos on my development machine, so I can't can't really leave that just unattended.
No, that's a little bit too valuable. Well, hopefully you get the demo out soon because I think people need to play this game, and hopefully you can get some kind of demo build. Now I know this is coming to Steam. How is the console aspect looking on this?
So I looked into this a little bit since we talked at Play NYC. It and like I mentioned there, but for everyone else, releasing to Steam first, Mac and Windows. But if things go well, I would be interested in porting to other platforms, and probably one of the first I would consider would be the Switch. It seems like a good fit for the game. I wouldn't probably want to do mobile. The Switch is like big enough of a screen that you can appreciate the artwork. The controls, I think, mesh well with the Switch's controls. So I looked into it a little bit, not super in depth yet. It seems like it seems pretty doable. The main challenge, I think, is just that the processor on the Switch is a little slower than when I started working on the game. I went on to Steam's hardware survey where they just kind of show like what percent of people have what different kinds of configurations on their computers, and I used that to kind of set, my targets to make trade-offs and stuff. And the processor on the Switch is kind of slower than the processors I was targeting on PC. Now, my game's not doing anything crazy that needs a super fast processor, so that is a roadblock that should be easy to kind of get over. But it is something where I'm like, oh, I kind of have to adjust my target if I want to make that happen. But other than that, like it seems like I can just run OpenGL. It seems like if I get access to the SDK, porting my engine shouldn't be too hard. I mean, you never know until you've done it. But yeah, it's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's awesome because I do agree. Do think the Switch would be great. Depending on the length, obviously, would probably determine whether or not physical or not. But I definitely would like this game physical. I'd like this on the shelf for sure.
Yeah, and I
it needs
also
to be
think that
preserved.
like with puzzle games, it's nice to have them on something you can. This is one of those games that, if it turns out the way I want, you're sometimes going to get stuck. You're gonna play through a puzzle and you go, you know what, I don't really know what the solution to this is, and you take a break, and then later on I don't know, you're on the bus and you're like, I got it. That is what the solution is, and it'd be really great if you could then pull out your Switch and then do it right there.
Absolutely.
Versus, it's on your computer and you wait until you get home and try it out. So it would be nice to be able to get it on something like the Switch.
I agree. So do you have any inkling at timetable when at least the game might hit? Is it 2020? Are you looking at 2021?
So super, super rough. We don't have like an official like release date. It's probably going to be about a year from now. At the same time, I did say that last year, so you have to take that with like a grain of salt. But yeah, it'd probably be about a year from now.
Okay, so maybe fall 2020, we'll be playing this hopefully on our Switches, but definitely on Steam. This is a game that again people need to see, people need to experience. It is really a well done puzzle game, and I look forward to actually playing it myself this time as opposed to watching my wife play it. But again, it is coming to Steam. It's a puzzle platformer, Way of Rhea. Please look it up. For more, go to your webpage, which is anthropicstudios.com. You're also part of the NintendoFuse Discord server, so if you guys want to join that, that'd be wonderful. We'll have a link, and hopefully you'll share when the demo goes live in there, and any news as it comes out to share with us, because I think that'd be great, and I want to see more people get this.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for the kind words about the game.
It's all true. Mason, thank you so much for joining me today. Any last words on Rhea that you want to leave?
Check out the website. We have links to social media. We just put up the Steam wish list if you play games on Steam. But yeah, hopefully we'll have more news soon and keep the updates coming along.
Speaking of news, for all Nintendo news, please go to NintendoFuse.com. Check out our Discord, check out our YouTube for more videos like this, our podcasts and game reviews, and a bunch of other content. Again, thank you, Mason. Thank you all for watching and listening, and have a great day.